Imagine standing in a city when the most powerful weapon ever created suddenly explodes above you. The sky flashes white. A shockwave tears through buildings. Everything around you collapses. Now imagine surviving that disaster and then experiencing it again just 3 days later. This is not fiction. This is the true story of Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the only person officially recognized for surviving both atomic bombings in Japan during World War II, a story so unbelievable that many people still struggle to believe it today. In the summer of 1945, Japan was nearing the end of World War II. Cities across the country were under constant threat of air raids. At the time, Tsutomu Yamaguchi was a 29-year-old engineer working for a major industrial company. He had traveled to the city of Hiroshima for a short business assignment. After several days of work, his trip was coming to an end. On the morning of August 6, 1945, he was preparing to leave the city and return home. It seemed like a completely ordinary day, but within minutes, history would change forever. At around 8:15 in the morning, Yamaguchi noticed something unusual in the sky. A single American aircraft was flying high above the city. Suddenly, a blinding flash filled the sky. For a split second, it felt as if the sun had exploded. The explosion that followed was unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. The first atomic bomb ever used in war had detonated over Hiroshima. The shockwave knocked Yamaguchi violently to the ground. Glass shattered. Buildings collapsed. Fires erupted throughout the city. The heat from the explosion burned his skin and clothes. For a moment, everything went silent except for the roaring fires around him. Hiroshima had been devastated in seconds. Despite the chaos and destruction, Yamaguchi was still alive. He had suffered serious burns and injuries, but somehow he had survived the blast. The city around him had become a nightmare. Streets were filled with injured civilians. Buildings were reduced to rubble. Smoke covered the sky. That night, Yamaguchi found shelter and tried to recover from his injuries. The following day, he made an incredible decision. Even after experiencing such devastation, he wanted to return home. His hometown was Nagasaki, hundreds of kilometers away. Against all odds, the train lines were still operating. And so, he began the long journey home. When Yamaguchi finally arrived in Nagasaki, his family was shocked by his condition. His body was covered in bandages, his skin was badly burned, yet he insisted on reporting back to work. On the morning of August 9, 1945, he went to his office and began telling his coworkers about the destruction he had witnessed in Hiroshima. He described a bomb that could destroy an entire city in seconds. Many of his coworkers found the story difficult to believe. At the time, the idea of such a powerful weapon seemed almost impossible. Then, suddenly, the room filled with another blinding flash. At 11:02 that morning, the second atomic bomb exploded over Nagasaki. The ground shook violently. Windows shattered instantly. Once again, Yamaguchi was thrown to the ground. Another city had been destroyed. Another wave of destruction spread through the streets. For the second time in just 3 days, he had witnessed the devastating power of an atomic bomb. And incredibly, for the second time, he survived. The war ended shortly after the bombings. Japan began the long process of rebuilding its cities and communities. Yamaguchi returned to a quiet life with his family. However, the physical and emotional effects of the bombings stayed with him for many years. Radiation exposure caused long-term health problems for many survivors. Yet despite everything he had experienced, he continued working and raising his children. For decades, very few people outside Japan knew his story, but eventually, historians confirmed the extraordinary truth. Many survivors of the atomic bombings were known as hibakusha, a term used in Japan for people affected by nuclear explosions. But Yamaguchi's experience was unique. He had survived both Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In 2009, the Japanese government officially recognized him as a double atomic bomb survivor. It was an extremely rare and tragic distinction, yet it also made his story one of the most remarkable survival stories in modern history. Tsutomu Yamaguchi lived for many years after the war and eventually shared his experiences with the world. He spoke publicly about the horrors of nuclear weapons and the importance of peace. His life became a powerful reminder of the devastating impact of war, but it also showed the incredible strength of human survival. Being present at one atomic bombing is already unimaginable. Being present at two is almost beyond belief. And yet, history confirms that it happened, which is why the story of Tsutomu Yamaguchi remains one of the most unbelievable survival stories ever told.